Okay, so here we are with our Finding Focus group. It is Wellbeing Week in Law. I am really excited to welcome Olivia here. She's known as the less stressed lawyer, and I think people will really be able to relate to her experiences navigating, having to manage time, effective lawyering, while also just managing everyday stressors. So we're going to have Olivia here take over, give us some tips and tricks before we start our typical Finding Focus group. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Olivia. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to talk to you today. I'm a former attorney, and I tell people all the time, everything I coach on, I used to struggle with myself. So now I work as a life coach, and I specialize in coaching lawyers live lives with less stress and far more fulfillment. And in my years and years of coaching experience and also my experience practicing law, I found that the number one contributor to stress and overwhelm is struggling with time management. So I want to talk to you today about better, more effective ways to manage your time, because if you dial down the overwhelm as it relates to time management, you're able to enjoy your career a lot more, get a lot more done, feel more successful and accomplished on a day-to-day basis. And that's really my goal for the people I work with. I want them feeling better. And if they feel more in control of their day-to-day life, they typically tend to feel a lot less stressed, more fulfilled, more successful. All right. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about three main things today, all related to time management. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is shifting the way that you think about time. I'm going to go through and identify some of the most common thoughts that my clients think when it comes to time and time management. They're negative thoughts, and we're going to need to shift those. I'm going to show you the impact of those thoughts on how you feel and how you show up in your day-to-day work life. And I'm going to give you some alternate thoughts that you can pivot to instead that will make a really big impact. We normally just focus on the strategy and the action that we take, but if you don't change how you think about time, you won't change how you treat time, what you do with time, because we're always operating within a think, feel, act cycle. So it really has to start with your thoughts. All right. We love to be doers and just dive into the action changes that we need to make. But if you don't adjust your mindset as well, the action that you take won't actually shift, or it will be temporary, and we want long lasting change. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the way you think about time. Then we're going to go through and just get more aware on how you're spending your time. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. You can choose to take me up on it if this is something you struggle with. This is a game changer. We're going to talk about auditing your time. That just creating that awareness is really impactful for changing how you interact with time. And then last but not least, I'm going to walk you through a 3-step process that you can use for managing your time effectively. And the 3 simple steps are reclaiming control of your calendar, planning your schedule accurately. I'll teach you how to do that. And then honoring your plan, everyone's least favorite part, but the most important one. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump in the chat. I will read it as I go and happy to answer any questions that you have. If I say something and you're like, oh my God, I struggle with that, let me know and I can dive into it a little bit in more detail, more depth. All right. So let's talk about the thoughts that you're typically thinking when it comes to managing your time. One of the most problematic thoughts that people think is the thought, I'm not in control of my time. Okay. And if you're thinking you're not in control of your time, and I get it, that probably feels really true for you. You're dealing with constant interruptions, lots of distractions, emails popping through while you're trying to work on a focused, substantive assignment. So it feels like you're being pulled in all different directions. All right. But the problem when you think I'm not in control of my time is that you end up feeling really helpless and out of control. And I want you to check in with yourself here. What do you do when you feel helpless and out of control? Not like out of control, like you're a chaotic mess, right? But out of control, like you don't have control over what's happening to your time. When you feel this way, you end up ceding control. You allow interruptions. You reshuffle your schedule. If you were working on something and an email comes in and you read it, you jump to that thing. You're playing whack-a-mole. You're really triaging and putting out fires, right? You're trying to multitask, which is a really ineffective way to work. And you don't set boundaries when you're thinking this way. You just cede that control to other people. You let those interruptions come in, and then you change your game plan for the day based on whatever came to you and popped up out of nowhere, right? So when you're thinking, I'm not in control of my time, you end up creating the result of not controlling your time. You don't set boundaries. You don't say no. You allow those interruptions. All right. So what I want to challenge you to start to look for, if you think this really frequently, I want you to start seeing all of the choices that you actually make when it comes to your time expenditures. All right. Every single expenditure of time is a decision. It's a choice that you make. It might not seem like that, but I want you to start to pay attention to where you actually agree to it. You make the decision to spend your time that way. You choose to answer the phone. You choose to let that colleague swing by your office to pick your brain. You choose to jump from what you're working on to your email, all right, and respond to that email to get it out, that response out ASAP, all right? All of those are decisions that you make. And when you start to see it, it's not happening to you, you're choosing to do it, you're really able to start to figure out why you're choosing to spend your time the way that you are. A lot of times it might be because you're people pleasing, you're worried about someone being frustrated or upset with you, right? Maybe you feel guilty making someone wait for you. You're trying to get the tennis ball back on their side of the court, but you want to become aware of those reasons. You might not like the reasons and might want to change your reasoning and change your decision moving forward. So I want you, as you start to pay more attention to the choices you're actually making, that will give you access to the thought, I'm in control of my time. Okay. And if you're thinking this, you will start to feel more powerful and in control. And from that place, remember I said we're in a think, feel, act cycle. So when you're feeling more in control and more empowered, more powerful, you'll make a plan and honor it. You'll resist the urge to reshuffle and you'll set those boundaries and say no. And then you'll create the result of controlling your time. All right. Another really common thought people think when it comes to time is I don't have enough of it. All right. This is a super common one. I used to think this basically every day when I was practicing law. All right. And if you're thinking, I don't have enough time, you're going to feel overwhelmed. All right. And you will do one of two things when you're feeling overwhelmed. All right. It might depend on the situation, or you might have a default response. Some people will procrastinate and do what we call in coaching buffer, which is where you seek something that provides you with instant gratification. So you might scroll on social media, go grab a snack, have a cocktail, watch a Netflix show, text a friend, shop on Amazon, do things that bring you that instant gratification and get you to escape that overwhelm in the moment. Ultimately puts you in a worse situation, right? The second thing you'll do is instead of procrastinating and buffering, you'll multitask. All right. You'll try and play whack-a-mole. You'll try and do all of these things, but you don't really finish anything and you really decrease your productivity. Studies show that multitasking reduces your productivity up to 40% because you're constantly interrupting yourself. You have to reorient yourself. You're taking breaks and have to get back at it. So it really decreases how productive you are. So whether you're procrastinating or you're trying to multitask ineffectively, when you're thinking, I don't have enough time, you end up not making good use of the time you have. All right. So what I want you to do moving forward is instead of thinking, I don't have enough time, I like to think of that as an incomplete thought. All right. We want to add context to it. So I want you to fill in two variables that we need to complete that thought. To do what, by when. All right. This is a dramatic thought when you're just thinking, I don't have enough time, full stop, no context. All right. It doesn't give you enough information to figure out whether this is actually true or not. When you add that context, to do what, by when, you're going to be presented with one of two scenarios. Okay. The first scenario, let's say you need to finish drafting a motion by tomorrow at 5 p.m. Or if you have a midnight filing deadline, by tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. All right. Estimate how long the motion will take you. If it will take you 8 hours to draft it, well, between now and tomorrow, you do have enough time, right? You might need to move things around if you have a full day of meetings tomorrow. That might be an obstacle that you have to confront, but you do have enough time. Now, if it was an 8-hour project and you need to have it done, we're in Eastern time right now, by 4 p.m., you don't have enough time, right? That's true. We've added the context. So if you're in the first scenario where you find out, oh my goodness, I actually do have enough time to get that done, your overwhelm is going to dial down because you're realizing it is possible for you to achieve what you want to achieve. If you're in the second scenario and you actually don't have enough time, you have to change your game plan. All right. You cannot cheat time. Sort of like people say with casinos, like the house always wins, time always wins. All right. So if the math doesn't work and you don't have enough time, you have to change your game plan. You've got to get an extension. You've got to, get help, figure out a scenario that allows you to get it done within a possible amount of time. Okay. So that's the first step. Add context. And then moving forward, rather than indulging in this dramatic thought of, I don't have enough time, full stop, I want you to switch to adding that context and then repeating to yourself, I do have enough time to do X by whenever your timeline is. Okay. So when you think that way, you'll feel really capable and assured because now we're doing something or striving to achieve something that's actually possible, not impossible. So that overwhelm is going to subside. And then from there, when you're feeling capable and assured, you can start to make an accurate plan for what you can accomplish by when, then you can stick to it. And that's going to allow you to complete the task in the time you have available. Okay. All right. Next thought. I've always been bad at managing my time. All right. I used to tell myself this all the time. I see this with my clients a ton. And again, this may feel very true if this is something that you've always struggled with. But when you think this way, you make yourself feel very incapable and discouraged. All right. And when you're feeling incapable and discouraged, you end up just doing what you've always done. You don't try anything new. You don't seek out ways to learn how to manage your time. You don't test that, let it be messy and kind of learn in an imperfect way, which is what learning how to manage your time requires. You've got to let it be a messy, clunky, imperfect process where you get 1% better every day. Most of my perfectionists just want to wake up tomorrow and be amazing at this. And that I wish I had the magic wand for that. I don't. It just doesn't work that way. So you have to practice and get a little bit better day after day. Or you might start, but then it doesn't go perfectly and you quickly give up. All right. And that happens when you're feeling incapable and discouraged already and you don't see the progress you want to see, you give up really quickly and you remain bad at managing your time. All right. So instead of thinking, I've always been bad at managing my time, I want you to pivot to thinking time management is a skill I can learn. All right. Because it is a skill you can learn. The underlying skill that time management rests upon is the skill of discipline, all right? Exercising or practicing discipline. And developing discipline is also a skill, all right? That's something that you can learn how to do. Most people like to just think, some people got lucky and they were born with it. I wasn't born with it, so I'm sort of screwed, right? There's nothing I can do about this. This is how I will always be. I promise you that's not the case. People beat themselves up so much for struggling with time management. But I finally had an aha moment one day and I realized that this is something, it's a skill that no one ever teaches us. Our parents don't teach it to us. We don't learn it in school. The law employers that we work for don't teach it to us either. All right. So it makes sense that you're bad at something you've never learned to do. All right. But that means that if you want to get better at it, you've got to learn a proper way to do it. And I'm going to teach you my 3 simple steps for that in just a minute. All right. But if you're thinking time management is a skill I can learn, you're going to feel encouraged and determined. And from that place, you're going to study the 3 simple steps that I teach you, put them into practice, let that process be clunky, and evaluate and improve, make those 1% improvements over time. All right. And as you do that, that's going to be how you create the result of learning how to manage your time. Okay. And then the last thought that I want to talk about, this comes when you're thinking about tasks on your to-do list. All right. The most common thought people think about things on their to-do list is, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do insert whatever the task is. Right. You can also ask yourself why you don't want to do it, and then you'll find what I call your second level resistance. But when you're thinking, I don't want to do X, I don't want to enter my time, I don't want to write that email, I don't want to call that client back, I don't want to draft that motion, I don't want to do that legal research, I don't want to prep for that court appearance. Whatever it is, when you're thinking, I don't want to, you will feel dread. All right. And then your default reaction will be to avoid feeling dread associated with that task, procrastinate, and seek instant gratification instead. All right. Something that brings you a little bit more pleasure. It might be something that's completely unrelated to work, or it might be something that's just easier and related to work. So people think of this as like productive procrastination, right? You might jump into your inbox rather than working on that brief or redlining a contract. All right. Some of those big ticket items that you have a lot of dread around, you'll do the low hanging tasks instead. All right. So when you're thinking, I don't want to do X, and you feel that dread, and then you avoid that dread, you create the result of not doing the task. All right. So I'm going to offer you a really unsexy thought that is very helpful. All right. The only way out is through. If what you actually want to do is get out of the discomfort associated with the task, the fastest way to get out of it is to just do the task. Okay. And like I said earlier, you can find your second level resistance by asking yourself why you don't want to do it. You might find reasons like it's going to be so hard, and then you'll feel challenged. It's so boring, and then you'll feel bored. It's so time consuming, and then you'll feel exasperated. I should have done it already, and you'll feel guilty. All right. So these emotions, these one word feelings, are the emotions we end up avoiding when we avoid the task. All right. So if you want to get out of feeling guilty and dreadful, the quickest way out is through. The faster you do the task, the faster the guilt subsides, the faster the boredom subsides, the faster the dread subsides. Okay. So when you're thinking this unsexy thought of the only way out is through, you'll feel really accepting, like this just is what it is, and you'll be able to accept the discomfort associated with completing the task. When we're not accepting of the discomfort associated with the task, that's when we avoid it. When you come to terms with the fact that some of the stuff that we have to do is going to be uncomfortable, it's not going to feel great, you have an easier time of working your way through that discomfort. I also teach a concept called gag and go. So it might make you feel nauseous and uncomfortable. You might, kind of want to vom working on something. My suggestion to people is gag and go your way through it. It's okay if it doesn't feel uncomfortable. That's not a good enough reason not to get started, not to work on it, and to not complete it. Okay. So when you're thinking the only way out is through, you'll complete the task and get through that discomfort as quickly as possible. All right. All right. So those are the most common thoughts that I see people struggle with. The next thing that I want you to do after you've started to shift your thinking around the way that you think about time and the way you manage it, and you can put those 4 thoughts that I offered you instead on a little post-it note and keep them on your desk if you'd like. The more often you see them, the more quickly your brain will start to think that way instead of the way you've always thought about time. But the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to audit your time. All right. Most people think they know how they spend their time, but then when we actually audit our time, and auditing our time is keeping track of how we spend all 24 hours of our time. Okay. I have a little sheet that I can send Jennifer that allows you to keep track of all 24 hours. It's a sheet that I used when I worked in Big Law and I was struggling with time management. I wanted to figure out where my time was going. And when you actually keep track of it, you create so much awareness as to what you're actually doing, how long tasks take you, why you're spending your time the way that you are. And just creating that awareness gets people to course correct pretty significantly. You might think you're only spending 30 minutes a day on social media, but you'll come to find out you're spending 2.5 hours. Or you read the news in the morning and that takes 45 minutes instead of the 10 minutes that you realized. Or getting ready every day, you think you can get ready in 30 minutes and you're always running late, and it actually takes you an hour and 10 minutes. Creating awareness as to all of those things helps you plan more accurately moving forward. Okay. You can also start to see issues. Do you double book yourself? Do you not give yourself enough time to get to and from court? Or do you schedule too short of meetings and they're always running over? All of that awareness is really helpful when it comes to managing your time effectively. So I recommend that people spend 2 weeks, because 2 weeks helps you get out of any outlier situations. 2 full weeks just keeping track of your time, and not just work time, all of your time, because your personal life impacts your professional life, your professional life impacts your personal life. So I recommend keeping track of all of it, and then you can get a pretty good baseline for what you're currently doing with your time, what changes you might need to make, in order to plan more accurately. Okay. And that brings me to managing your time effectively. So there's 3 simple steps to managing your time effectively. First things first, now that we're working on believing you're in control of your time, I want you reclaiming control of your calendar. Okay. So I want you to give some thought. Where do you cede control? I have a client who used to call these like the creepy crawlers that get into your schedule. All right. Where does your day get away from you? Is it jumping into your inbox and trying to respond to people immediately? And that takes you out of that focused work that you were doing. Is it you answer unscheduled phone calls and you were planning to do something and now you're on the phone with a client for an hour because you want to be responsive? Do you allow people to swing by and interrupt you? Maybe if you're working from home, that's your loved ones, not even your colleagues, right? So identify those places where you're ceding control and get very clear. What will you change? What will you do to reclaim control? Do you want to have office hours? Maybe you have a paralegal that works for you and they're always interrupting you with questions. You can set aside specific time every day where you answer questions for them. You can have office hours instead of a fully open door policy, right? You can create a system where you don't answer unscheduled calls. That's a rule I have in my business. If someone calls me unexpectedly, I let it go to voicemail and I will either text or email them immediately asking them what it's about. And then I'll schedule a time that works for me, typically not the same day. Normally it's one day later so I can build it into my schedule. I also recommend people have flex time in the afternoon. So maybe a half an hour or an hour of unscheduled time, where if someone called you at 11, rather than jumping on that at 11, you can do that at 3 o'clock during your flex time. And you could email them and say, hey, I can't talk right now. I'm in the middle of something, but I'm free at 3, if that works for you. And then you can schedule that and plan for it accordingly. Okay. So go through and find all of the different areas where you're ceding control. Maybe you're people pleasing, right? So decide, what will you need to do differently? You'll have to gag and go through feeling guilty, saying no, or not responding immediately, and then respond during that flex time or baking it into your schedule the next day. All right. Maybe you let calls run long over the scheduled time. All right. What would you need to do differently? I'd need to say at 1 minute to the end of the call, hey, I have a hard stop. If we need to wrap this up at a later call, we can do that, but I have to get off at this time. Or you can say that at the beginning of the call just to level set expectations. So the point that I want you to see is get very specific with what you'll do differently to reclaim control. Okay. Step number 2, planning your schedule accurately. All right. I like to say that there's 2 different components to time management: math and mind drama. All right. Mind drama comes in with reclaiming control of your calendar, setting boundaries, saying no. A lot of mind drama there. Okay. A lot of negative thoughts, a lot of negative emotion. Same thing with honoring your plan, right? A lot of negative thoughts, a lot of uncomfortable emotions. Planning your schedule accurately, no mind drama there, just math. Okay. But you've got to focus on the math problem. Most people don't do this. They just make their plan for the day, if they're planning at all, based on what they hope or wish to accomplish, completely disconnected from the math. Okay. So they end up overcommitting. They plan way too much. I like to say you're trying to fit 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound bag, right? And then you end up not getting through most of what you've planned because it was unrealistic to begin with. And then you feel behind at the end of the day and you feel really discouraged. All right. So here's what I want you to do instead. All right. Number 1, you're going to make a to-do list. All right. This is really simple. Do not overcomplicate it. You get to just have enough detail where you know what you need to do. All right. People like to get perfectionistic about their to-do lists and they overcomplicate it and then it becomes too burdensome to maintain. So I just want you to make a very simple to-do list. All right. Draft motion for Rodriguez case, or draft motion to compel, if that's more specific, right? Call client name back, file appearance in Richards, right? Just enough specificity where you know what you need to do. If there's a hard deadline, you can put it in parentheses, but you don't need to get more detailed than this, okay? So you're going to create a to-do list and have that be running. I like it to be electronic. That way you don't have to remember to bring that legal pad with you everywhere you go. I just use the notes app in my phone, okay? So you can always be updating that. The point of a to-do list is not to get to the bottom of it, by the way. It's just to remind you of what you have on your plate. If you're thinking the point is to get to the bottom of it, you're always going to feel discouraged when you look at your to-do list. You're not going to get to the bottom of it. You're going to add some things, complete some things, add some more things, complete some things, and it's always going to be ever evolving. Okay. So you're going to make that to-do list. I recommend breaking projects down by task. Okay. The bigger you have a project on your to-do list, the harder it is to estimate the amount of time. Also, the more dread and resistance you will experience to getting started on that task, on that project. So break it down into smaller tasks. Then you're going to estimate how long each of those tasks will take you. All right. Oh, I think drafting the intro section of this brief will take me 30 minutes. Working on the statement of facts might take me an hour and a half. Researching this legal issue might take me 2 hours, right? If you're bad at this, double your estimates just to be on the safe side. Okay. So we're going to make a to-do list, break projects down into specific tasks, estimate how long each task will take. Okay, that's the starting place for your to-do list. Now we're going to think about our calendar. All right. I want you to have a rule where you put all appointments on your calendar as soon as the need arises. Even if someone else is going to send you a calendar invite, put in a placeholder. All right. I did that for this session today. Jennifer sent me a calendar hold, but as soon as we got off our initial Zoom call, I put in a little placeholder just so no one could double book me. All right. So that helps you eliminate double bookings that you later have to resolve. It also makes sure that you always have an up-to-date reflection of your availability. Okay. Now let's talk about planning your day. We've got the to-do list, we've got all appointments on your calendar, we've broken things down into tasks, and we've estimated how long they will take. Now you need to decide on start and stop times for work. All right. You can pick the same ones every day. That will make your life very easy. But if that feels unavailable to you based on unpredictability in your schedule, you can just do this one day at a time. When will I start work tomorrow? When will I likely end work tomorrow? All right. And the reason this is important is because you need bookends on your day in order to figure out the math, the time you have available. Okay. If you leave a question mark on the bottom half, like I'll just work until I'm done, you have no way to accurately plan what will fit. So then you end up shoving 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound bag. Okay. And being too optimistic about what you can accomplish. So you want those start and stop times. Let's say you're going to work from 9 to 5. All right. That's an 8-hour day. Let's say you have 3 hours worth of meetings. So you're going to minus the meetings that you have on there. I also like to subtract humaning. All right. If you eat lunch or you're going to use the restroom or grab a coffee. So in an 8-hour day with 3 hours worth of meetings and probably about an hour worth of humaning, you've got 3 available hours left over. Okay. So then once you have your total time available, you're going to plan less than what fits. So you're going to look at that to-do list with the tasks, with the time estimates, and you're going to plan less than 3 hours of work. So aim for like 2.5. Okay. 2.5, 2 hours and 45 minutes, no more than that. All right. That gives you a little wiggle room. All right. So then you plot that into the calendar. Next step is implementing your plan. All right. This will not go perfectly, but then you're going to evaluate, just quickly asking yourself what worked, what didn't work today, what will I do differently tomorrow, and then do tomorrow differently, leveraging that learning that you got from that evaluation. All right. And this is how you get 1% better every single day at planning your schedule accurately and then honoring your plan. And the last thing I'll say about honoring your plan is very simple to do. It is also very uncomfortable to do. There are only 3 things you need to do to honor your plan. You need to start your plan on time, the planned task. You need to work without interruptions, and you need to end on time. All right. All 3 of those things are very uncomfortable for people. Starting on time, you're going to have to feel that dread and gag and go through it. You might have to feel bored in order to work without interruptions and not pick up your cell phone, or you might have to feel guilty not answering that call to finish what you're in the middle of. All right. And then to finish it on time, you might have to feel imperfect, that you could make it a little bit better, that you could tweak it, but you're just going to get it off. Okay. So notice as you're working on honoring your plan, where do you struggle? What flavors of discomfort do you not like to feel? And then work on getting a little bit better every single day about gagging and going through those negative emotions. All right. Any questions we've got?
I have one question.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Olivia,
My
for
pleasure.
this interesting presentation. So, in terms of honoring my plan, I understand, sometimes you get meeting invites, a day or two prior to it, right? Or a week ahead of time. But are you suggesting that once I do have my schedule ready for the next, whatever, 1, 2 days, and I know what the tasks are, and I did the math, and I need to fill the 8 hours. So, are you suggesting to block the time, let's say, so that not no new meeting invites or requests can come in that will basically make it hard for me to honor my plan, right?
Yeah.
Because then I have constantly, that's my issue. I am having a white space on my calendar, and this white space is always interrogated, like filled up. So I also started blocking time for tasks so that nobody can come in. So is this the recommendation to?
That is my recommendation. So you can also make decisions ahead of time. Like I only do meetings. Let's say you like to do meetings in the afternoon because you
Mhm,
do focused work better in the morning. I'd block out every day with like a recurring like focused work block calendar appointment. So
mhm,
that time's always blocked off. And then people could only schedule in the
mhm.
afternoon. But if you're making, I recommend making your plan a day before. So like the evening for the next day I'd go in and block that out. So if no one has come in already and blocked out
Mhm.
and scheduled a meeting and you want to plan stuff to do during that time, put it on your calendar. That way they can't.
Right.
And if they email you and say, hey, I saw that you weren't available, you can have that flex time for, true emergencies that pop up and you can fit them in there if you'd like and give that on
Mhm.
an as needed basis. But the general rule would be they have to plan for the following day.
Yeah.
So 2 days out. And that's a way that you can sort of like safeguard and defend your time rather than letting those creepy crawlers
Mhm.
get in there and then your plan for the day is kind of shot.
Yeah, I like that, especially if you have give a little bit of flex time in, so maybe an emergency can come in. And my second question is, in terms of resistance, I know you talked about the resistance topic to start a task to make it work or complete it or even start, not complete. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit about the reasons, like how, or do you have some tips how to overcome this initial resistance? Because yes, once you start, it seems like it disappears,
Yeah.
but sometimes, it's the resistance that keeps you procrastinating.
Yeah, so it's your primitive brain. I think the best way to understand and work through the resistance is to understand what's going on, right? Because most people want to create a situation where there is no resistance,
Yeah.
right? But that's not going to happen because we all have a primitive part of our brain that is designed to do three things, okay? Seek pleasure, conserve energy, and avoid discomfort. This is called the motivational triad. And this is always operating within all of us. Okay. So when it comes time to start something, right, our primitive brain is like screaming, abort, abort, abort. And it wants us to get to do anything that achieves these three things more than the planned task. Okay. It wants us to seek pleasure, conserve energy, and avoid discomfort. And getting our work done is normally not pleasurable, requires us to gag and go through discomfort, and requires us to expend energy. All right. So it cranks up the dial on our resistance before we're going to start something. I like to get very specific about the resistance I'm experiencing. Okay. So the first layer of resistance will be, I don't want to do X, right? And you'll feel
Mhm.
dread. But the second layer, your reason for why you don't want to do it. If you ask yourself, why don't I want to do this? You'll get the thinking that's creating more resistance. And then you can identify the specific flavor. So you might be thinking, I don't want to do this because I have so much other stuff I need to do. That
Mhm.
dread and overwhelm. All right. If you're thinking, I have so much other stuff to do, that will make you
Mhm.
feel overwhelmed. I don't want to do this because I don't know how to complete this task. I don't know will make you feel confused. So it's dread and confusion. All right. I don't want to do it because it's boring. Dread and boredom. I don't want to
Mhm.
do it because I'd rather be doing something else instead. Dread and deprivation, right? So if you find these combinations and you understand why you're resisting, you can sort of talk yourself through it. Like, well, it's not going to get any less confusing if I don't start on it,
Mhm.
right? If I don't work on one thing right now, I'm going to be even more overwhelmed. Like it's counterintuitive, right?
Mhm.
Noticing that you don't want to do something because it's boring. I work with a lot of people on their expectations around their work. A lot of people expect their work to not be boring. And our work is boring a decent amount of the time. Some stuff's exciting, some stuff's not. I also
Mhm.
like people to reframe their thinking like, what if boring means it's easy? Because if you think about when work is like really exciting, that's not always necessarily a good thing. Normally, that's like high stress, a lot of pressure. It might be exciting, but that can get exhausting if that's all you're up. Like I used to do trial work. Trials are exciting, they're also exhausting, right? So changing your expectation. Oh, I am going to have to do some tedious things as part of my job. I am going to have to do some boring things as part of my job, right? With confusion. I won't always know how to go about doing something. If I avoid it, I'm going to stay confused. If I force myself to work through it, I'll become no longer confused. So if you identify it very specifically rather than just saying, this is uncomfortable, uncomfortable is too vague. If you
Mhm.
get more specific, you'll have an easier time of working through it. But a big part is just adjusting your expectation. In order to get the stuff done, I'm going to have to feel uncomfortable and I'm going to gag and go through the discomfort rather than expecting it to not feel bad.
I love that. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Are there any other questions for Olivia? All right. Well, with that, I think we can thank Olivia for her time. I will put this recording, and I took some notes, and then whatever Olivia is able to provide for materials, I'll put that in our shared resources document we've got going, as well as send that an email. And then, of course, Olivia, I know you have some as a coach, you have a group that meets regularly. So if anyone's interested in kind of pursuing services with Olivia or joining some of those groups, please reach out. And if you want to put your email or website in the chat, but of course, I'll send that via email as well. Um,
Perfect.
but thank you so much.